Okay, welcome to the Carroll Community Center Building Committee meeting of March 10th, 2025. Following the guidance issued by the state in 2020 regarding the open meeting law, this public meeting will be held remotely, and individuals wishing to participate may do so by utilizing Zoom video conference technology. To join the meeting by video conferencing using a computer, tablet, or phone, please go to the Dover website for instructions, doverma.gov. This meeting is being recorded. My name is Dick Malcolm, and I'm chair of the building committee. And we'll do a roll call of committee members present. David Billings.
Here.
Luciana Berti.
I'm here.
And Ruth Townsend.
Here.
Okay, so we have a quorum. We're ready to go. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes, which I personally have not seen.
Haven't seen them either.
Chance. So if nobody's had time to review the minutes, then if they are posted, then, excuse me, not posted, but have been forwarded along from Colliers, then we can take this up at our next meeting. So I don't know, Colliers, did they get, I haven't had a chance to review, David hasn't had a chance to review, Ruth, I don't know if you got it.
I just reviewed, but I called Al because I couldn't find them, and he said that they were just delayed. There was so many other things uploading that there was a delay in getting them uploaded onto the files, the shared files.
And I did not review it either.
And Luciana is driving, so we hope she didn't.
No, I didn't.
Okay, all right, well, let's move on then. We will table the approval of minutes. Next on the agenda is Fenwick McCready Architecture Additional Service Proposals 05 and 06. So why don't we start with on 05 we've got it's that on 05, which everybody I know has a copy of, forward that all along. It's broken into basically 4 sections: architecture, landscape, civil, MEP, and FP. And what I'd like to do is to just take each one of these paragraphs at a time for discussion. The first one being under architecture, the proposal from Fenwick McCready is for the next 4 months to do lump sum for a 75% of what they're billing for right now, because the effort is going to be reduced moving forward because as we close out this project. And that would be from that would be for the months of January, February, March, and April. As a reminder, their last contract amendment expired with work through the end of December. So then going forward from the end from January, February, March, April, May, the month of May on, the proposal is for Fenwick McCready would go on a time and materials not to exceed $30,000. And to be billed as a T&M. So with that, is on this particular item on 05 under architecture, is there discussion?
I understand that the contract has been extended. I'm a little concerned that, we're not going to see substantial completion until looks like May. And they've missed the last couple, and right now they're saying it's April, and I'm not sure I believe them. So I understand the extension of CA services, but we do own closeout, we do own punch list, as built, all of that. And now you're saying that's going to be a 30,000 time materials. I'm getting a little confused on where is the closeout that we own under the base contract.
So I can speak to that, and then Deborah can fill in after me if I miss any gaps. So in general, we invoiced our contract in September of 2024. That was when we were at 100%. the original contract from 2020 had, X months of construction schedule. I believe it was 15, but someone else here can kind of correct me on that one. So the regular invoicing was X months divided by, Y dollars. That's the math between the pay schedule. So as of the end of September, we didn't have a reasonable construction schedule, or we didn't have a construction schedule that really forecasted the completion dates that had been validated. So we invoiced in September at 100% of the scope. Obviously, we didn't do the CA, the punch list services. The project wasn't ready to be served. So, in hindsight, we probably could have paused at that point and said, listen, we need a different vehicle because we still own some scope at the end. I'll call it a month or two. We didn't do that. We kept going through the contract. And then you probably recall in October, we did different kind of ad services. And I know the message that we got back was really come back and give us something that's lump sum through completion. And so Colliers can speak to this. We've gone through a number of construction schedules and trying to get current information that has been vetted and we believe is going to stick. And so that's also been the reason for why we had this little gap of giving you something, because we're trying to make sure that what we're giving you is current. And I appreciate your message before was, we want to do this, one time. We don't want to have to keep coming back. So what we've presented, which is basically, lump sum for a couple of months, and then the T&M. And the T&M was really just because we know that things shift. When we wrote this, the forecasted substantial completion, I think was early March. Now, as you said, April might be later. We know these things can ebb and flow, and the goal is not to just keep saying, okay, great, here's another bill. It's that we can kind of validate this based on the information we have. And I think as of today, it's very reasonable to believe that you have occupancy in the building in the month of April. I think that's reasonable. We know there's some work to happen, and sometimes there's a difference between a TCO and an owner moving in. That just comes to, that's kind of a different story. But in the sense of occupancy in the building having substantial completion, we think that's April. There are some other, I'll call it trickling obligations. Things like planting and other things that we know will happen into the warmer months. So playground scope, trees, that kind of a thing. They will be minor and they're going to be minimal. But we know that not everything is going to be done on April 29th. But to get back to your question, yes, construction, the punch list, the closeout services, we own that. All of the consultants do. So what we're invoicing, for this early 2025, you could take 2 months of it and actually, apply it backwards to 2024, because we were working and doing, basic CA in August and September when we had initially anticipated doing project closeout, punch list, O&Ms, getting project to completion. So this is not intended to look like a double dip or that there's additional scope. It's not additional. We owe you the project closeout, but it wasn't able to be performed in 2024. The original schedule had occupancy in September. So if anything, this work is kind of taking it, put it back in the middle, and then everything floods forward. I know that Collier's contract is a little bit different because they have CA and then they have closeout as a separate breakout. We didn't do ours that way because it's too nuanced to try to make things more granular. It's, like I said, X number of months, Y dollars, do the math so it's all, even. This is just looking at that and saying, the project is, ramping down. There is less day-to-day need. And so that's why we presented it as, less than a full-time person to be able to go through those months. Does that answer any of your question? You can say no and ask it again. I'll try.
No, I understand it because I've been doing this a number of times. Normally I do have the architects set a specific closeout fee number.
Okay.
It's, it's usually 5% of the CA. my fear is that closeout's just gonna go on forever. And you're just gonna be, and it does. And so I'm just trying to see if we can kind of, not have this conversation another, in July.
So I would say it's not uncommon to, get to occupancy and then, excuse me, you might have a month or two where you say, okay, we're not ready to do the final rec now. We're going to push it off another month. And so in that situation, you don't need a full-time person. There's going to be a couple of meetings. We go back and forth. We go in that sense, that makes sense to say, no, we want to push it out so that obviously we're not doing OACs every week. We don't need to have all of those meetings. There is going to be some, lingering obligations that are just related to, paying out contracts. The other things that are seasonal, planting, a lot of that is contract scope. So that is just going to happen at a different time. The reason why we said, okay, if you need some more, it's we've had some conversations about some potential things that got cut from the project previously that may want to come back. It's more of if there needs to be some more coordination on those efforts or something else that I'm maybe not even thinking about right now. It's the we recommend having a couple more dollars, and then if you need us, if you don't, great, we'll come to the ribbon cutting and everything will be done.
I appreciate that. It's the 30,000 if that again, we're gonna have landscaping that's gonna go on forever. There's got to be a period of time where we're going to, need to let landscaping establish and then determine whether it's going to survive. So in the fall, someone's going to have to come back and do a punch list on landscaping. How is that going to be paid for? If all your contract is now time and materials, then it's, it's always going to be extra.
No, I'm following you. So let me go back one step. So we tried to break this out into the kind of different disciplines. So when for FM, we said, listen, here's a monthly cost and then some additional monies that may or may not be needed. In the next paragraphs, there are separate paragraph for landscape, for civil, and for MEPFP. So your specific question about planting, yes, that's one we all can look at and say a lot of the there's a decent amount of contract scope that just hasn't happened yet. We know it will happen in the later. That's going to involve tagging. It's going to involve punch list. It's going to involve some go backs and other, those kinds of things. That's so some of that is contract and some of that there's some additional costs related to that. But you don't need me to to go do tagging. That's landscape can generally do that. Where we may need to come to a meeting or two is if the nurseries all say, listen, there's nothing available and we have to have more of a conversation to figure out what makes sense. But that I think landscape and civil as well there is going to be more work after the building occupancy for a few reasons, partially seasonally, but also because they're not, the occupancy is not dependent on that being complete. So we can kind of break them out. It's not pushing other things. It's not part of the critical path.
No, I understand that. It's more contractually is my issue, is making sure that there's still funds there, that we've got the landscape architect coming back and we're not paying them on a T&M basis where we should have had them on lump sum.
Got it. Fair enough. So in this, like I said, we do have some breakouts.
Okay,
for
now
others.
as long as we've got those in the
Okay.
I'm accepting it.
Yeah, the only thing we're talking about having T&M would be our services after starting May 1st.
Okay.
Yeah, and then everyone else, the scope is described and our services are described also, and those are fixed. So, and if there's a better way to deal with it, we thought that should, yes, that'll cover, the 30 will cover any little thises and that's that drag in through the summer. But yeah, we're fine entertaining a different scenario for that piece of it. if that makes more sense.
And the one thing to know, the 30,000, that is not to exceed, correct?
Correct. And I'll be honest to say, listen, I kind of picked a number basically off the top of my head to say, it's less than, or it's more than the other months. But to David's comment, it's very common for things to, not end the month after something gets planted. So it's reasonable that there's some, minimal effort for pay recs and other things that need to be adjusted. But it's not a full-time, person. And it's more, there's a different kind of a cadence to that rhythm. So I don't anticipate that it's large. Like I said, we had some other conversations about potential things that might want to get wrapped in. That you might decide that we talked about some things like some exterior signage, some other things that might be nice to have in the project. You might decide to do that on your own and, you're good. You don't need
Yeah.
us.
So, question, Katie, so if we were to say, we've kind of talked a little bit about adding in some of the VE items which
Mhm.
were taken out. Would these fees cover us for those, working on those VE items?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. Any other comments on the architecture portion of this?
Well, I'm good.
Okay. Okay, what I'd like to do, because there's three other components to this, the landscape, civil, and MEP, FP. What I'd like to do is, so why don't we move, so we're all good on the architecture as proposed by FM. Okay, so why don't we move to the landscape part of this? My first comment on landscape, and you can educate me and others, Katie, is, why is there additional on landscape when it appears as though nothing has happened yet?
Fair comment. So in the sense of really anything being built, there's nothing that you're gonna see in the ground. There are a couple of things that have come up as far, with the contractor's work. Most recently, they have hired a new subcontractor for all the landscape, which means all of the work to date related to submittal review, lots of RFIs clarifying things like loam and what's part of the scope, will have to be relayed to a new subcontractor. So in addition to that, we had a number of reviews and things to get to a point where we still don't have a good, there wasn't a good product to actually be able to review and send back and say, yes, this is good to go. So part of this has been some additional work, repeated work that hasn't resolved in a place that's, complete. I will note, as far as plant tagging, we didn't have a plant tagging visit. There was many meetings, virtual meetings to get to a point where we could actually have that happen. But that didn't happen. So plant tagging, that's contract scope, that'll happen in 2025. As far as there's a couple other meetings and things that have had to happen. And I gotta say sort of generically, some of it is just inefficiency in schedule. So some site visits happening in the past where could have been more efficient, looking at fencing and pedestrian paving and planting and playground. They've really been broken out. And so there's less of an efficiency on that side. To that end, in the spring, if things turn out, hopefully that can be, simplified and minimized, but it's been an effort in inefficiency. That's part of it. I will say also, David, I did hear your comment to say you don't want to do T&M. So I'll take you at your word. This is one that I think if there's some concern about the scope and really validating what was contract, what's additional, if it makes sense for this, for us to be, not submitting slips per se, but if the invoicing has the backup to say the contract owned X number of site visits, Y have been complete to date, we need to do 2, 3, 4 more, whatever. If that is favorable. I mean, we could certainly, you know, set it up that way. And so that's what the invoicing is. It's a description of the scope of services with a description of why it is beyond contract scope.
Can I ask a question? Am I
Sure.
hearing correctly that we changed that the subcontractor for landscape was changed?
Yes.
And a lot of work was now it's a rework.
Yes.
So all of this should not be on us, should be on the contractor. I'm not paying for this. It's just his way of his lack of managing some contractor does not constitute a reason for us to pay more. What other people think?
No, I agree.
I agree
Yeah.
too. I was going to say the same.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a back charge, and
Yeah.
now this needs to be clearly defined that this is going to be back charged against the contract.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and also the fact that, you know, the contractor is not easy to get along with is not something we're going to pay for either. That's part of the deal of dealing with construction management. You know, if it takes 3 more meetings than you think, that's the way it is. But if we're having to redo submittals, if we're having to, you know, redo work that's been done because the contractor changes his sub out, that's on him. So any time needs to be clearly back charged to the contractor and put a credit change order in to pay for it.
Okay.
And I just wanted to ask, and I'm probably the most layman on here in terms of the first time project. Katie, you talked about a lack of efficiency in site visits. Was that FMA? Was it the contractor?
This is for, in general, it's because the project's gone long. So with the expectation that all of this work could have happened in the fall of 2024, it has not. So some of the pedestrian paving, the sidewalk, was done in the fall, but all of the playground scope, the plantings, the sod, the grass, and the fencing has all been pushed out. Most of those because you don't want to be doing that work in December. So that's the inefficiency that I speak of, is that, you know, landscape is going to come and represent all, you know, going to look at all of those things, just as our other engineers will be looking at multiple things when they're on site. The construction schedule pushed all that work from 2024 to 2025. That's the inefficiency.
So because we're looking at the delays as being the fault of the contractor, or a lot of those delays, then isn't that again something that they should be responsible for, those extra costs?
I think that's a reasonable assertion. I guess I would kind of put back to this group, you know, is that the impression of all of this, you know, proposal scope, or is this that intended to be more isolated? Because this proposal is additional months that our services required for controlled construction. And
I mean,
so
I suppose I'm looking at the extra cost that we're getting from all angles, from you guys, from Colliers. When, I mean, like I keep saying, I'd love David or Luciana or Dick or any of you to jump in.
No, you're right.
Because it's like the reasons that I've seen that I saw from the contractors in that letter about the delays to the completion date this time just didn't seem to ring true. Like, you know, delay in doing the PCOs. I thought we were keeping those on track. And yeah, and other things, I just don't know why we're getting, anyway, I'm just repeating everything, but getting a date and then it's pushing back and it's pushing back. So.
And if I could jump in for a second, I do have an email out to Nina. There's a couple, I was actually gonna bring this up as far as the back charges to the contractor when we were gonna discuss the next ad services proposal number 6, but I do have an email out to Nina for some issues that, or I guess additional costs that I guess we're incurring because of, you know, errors by the contractor. And so I have an email out to Nina to see how she wants to handle that and whether we can, withhold that from them now, or how she wants to handle that. So I'm waiting to hear back on that.
It just, again, I'm willing to be corrected. It just seems that this project has been pushed out so far. And I get that often building and everything can be pushed out, but and I can understand like the very original one, which was the asbestos, but there's never been anything else big that's come through that we've known about, that we've been given any advance warning for, or that they've kept us up to date with so that we could do something to correct it and keep things speeding along. It just seems to be pushing out for no big reason, or things that should have been spotted.
So I mean, as this pertains to landscape, probably civil as well, and these last three items,
Yeah,
safe civil and MEPFP. I'm just curious, in your experience, like David and Luciana, does that, how do you go about doing that? So if FM spends extra time, but it's gonna get back charged to the contractor, FM's not gonna be billing the contractor, I don't suppose. I don't know how this.
yeah, it still needs to run through the contracts that are in place.
Mhm.
But it needs to be detailed to the contractor and a credit change order submitted to them for these costs. So that when, all at the table, I mean, this is like beyond the liquidated damages. Is what we're trying to say, is that these are actual costs because of their failure to perform. Now, they're going to come back and say the same things we are. Well, you never performed in the first place. Why am I paying for them twice? That's why I asked the question. This has not been done. Why, why should we pay for it again? So we just have to have that argument in place, and Al, you're gonna have to detail this to O'Connor and put this as part of the town's claim against them.
And David, I agree with you. So and we need to write it specifically, make sure, because we're gonna go to court on this. So
Yep.
has to be very clear, and an FMA has to help us, and Al needs to do the same things.
So David, to your point, Dick, thank you for asking that question, because I was gonna ask the same thing to see how, as far as today, and so I know we went over the architect's side of things as far as the SAT services, and it seems like we're good on that. As far as the landscaping and maybe the civil and the mechanical, is this something that the building committee wants to wait until we figure this out with M. O'Connor and Nina, or is this something that, I guess, David and Luciana especially, how do you guys want to?
So I have a separate question. I thought the last schedule was February, right?
The last schedule was for substantial completion was the beginning of March.
Okay, so to me, anything beyond March should be all on them. That's it. They moved 4 times.
Yeah, no, it was February. No,
I thought it was
you are
February.
absolutely right. It was February. When we got to February, it was March. Now that we're in March, it's on April. That's why I don't believe it.
Yeah, so I think any cost going from February, we can pick February or March 1, it's all on them. On top of the
Liquidated damages?
yes, the liquidated damages. Yes, thank you.
Understood. So on the administrative side, how do you, do you guys want to wait until, because I do have an email out to Nina as far as how she wants to handle back charges. I do have those like kind of detailed for her. And, do you guys want to wait until we kind of sort that out before moving with, these specific costs for landscape civil, or how do you prefer to handle that?
I think we can wait, but this is my opinion. And then David, I'd love to hear your opinion too. We should send them a letter, putting them on notice. That's our intention. I don't know what our contract says about notifications, timing in notification from us so that they are on notice. But David, what's your thought?
I agree, we gotta put them on notice. I think that's critical. I don't see it being resolved anytime soon, as we haven't gotten, there's a lot of issues that we have not been able to get resolved with O'Connor. And since these need to come through the town's contract anyway, I think we need to authorize the payments in order to get them, the town to cut a check and to get them paid. But we need to withhold these monies.
Okay, that was my question, David. If we should still authorize this, just because they have to run through the contract, and then we'll figure it out with M. O'Connor and Nina involved. Okay.
So if I understand this, basically then this is in regards to FM's proposal 05. These are all forecasted additional services for landscape, civil, and MEPFP. We would approve those for FM, and then FM, you would detail all of the expenses, and then that would end up being a back charge to O'Connor.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, that's why it's going to be important that we have the documentation first on notification for the contract, and then substantiation for any costs.
Yep.
I mean, we need to do this on all of the claims that we're going to have, whether they're liquidated damages or actual damages, because that's what we're claiming.
Okay. So as this relates to Fenwick McCready ad service proposal 05, we have in front of us. As it's written now and stands, it's a total of 94,450 plus the 30,000 on NTE, not to exceed. So we're 94,450 plus 30K. Right, we're at 124,450. 124,450 is what's in front of us. We want to recommend that for approval to the Board of Selectmen.
I would do a motion.
Second,
Okay, well, let's have a vote on that then. If you are in favor of David Billings, David,
Yes.
Luciana,
yes.
and Ruth,
Yes.
and I am yes as well. Okay. Thank you. So that's the ad service proposal 05. We have another ad service proposal 06. And this one pertains to there's a bunch of these which I'd like to just kind of breeze through and see if there's comments on those. These would be in addition to any of the expenditures, the expenditure that we've just recommended for approval on 05. So I'm looking at the ad service proposal 06. I don't know if Al, you can put that on the screen and we can just start going through this.
Sure. Where did it go? Here we go. Can everyone see my screen?
There you go. Yep.
Okay.
Great. I think, yeah, well, Al, since you've got it on the screen, why don't you lead us through this, starting with the EV coordination.
Sure, I'm just gonna pull up my
Or
notes.
FM, I don't know who, basically to explain why, basically we just need some whys on this. Why is this an extra?
Okay, so Al, feel free to jump in. I'll say the first chunk that says category A, this is things that we're working on right now. So, you know, this is stuff that we know might evolve. It might we decide not to go any forward, but this is kind of the most recent category of a couple things we need to work on. So EV coordination, we know that that Dover is getting some additional funds from another a grant. What really needs to happen, it's not a huge exercise, but it's really just the coordination of the specific type of EV charger, and then relate that to the striping around the parking spaces. There are some specific requirements as far as accessibility for different types of chargers. What has been assumed in the project, I think makes the most sense, but like anything, this is, you know, sort of something where you assume a product that's not proprietary, but what gets provided, you know, is always a little bit different. So this is one, you know, Al and I have coordinated quite a bit on the accessibility requirements for EV chargers. Within the parking lot, we have adequate space. We just need to make sure that we're locating them in a place that works with the specific models that are being presented. And I should say, all the infrastructure is included in the project. So this is not a real add. It's more of just refining the coordination with the specific products that, you know, the owner is purchasing with your granted funds.
So how
that one's
much is it?
I believe it says 8 hours of manpower.
8 hours at $150,
Oh, okay.
$1,200.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Dick. So I did put a blended rate of $150 an hour for an assumption of, you know, averaging. And then the next two are ones that we've talked about recently on site. So part one is some screening for the mechanical units that are over the lobby.
Katie, I'm sorry to
Oh,
interrupt.
yeah, yeah.
But what I'd like to do is just say, you know, is there any more, I mean, basically, we're looking at this and saying, is this something that we feel that the town should bear you know, it is an extra to the town. So that's why I'd like to just kind of
Got
nip
it.
through one of these. So with EV coordination, is there any discussion on that one?
I guess my initial opinion, I mean, honestly, I haven't had a chance to really look at this that much. So what is this kind of standard CA coordination? You know, this is kind of what you do during construction administration. You take submittals and you make sure it fits in the design and
There,
okay.
agreed. Yes, we do have some, there
okay.
is a specific exclusion of scope for anything that's coming with additional funding sources. So grants
Okay.
or outside
Alright.
scope.
Okay, well, hopefully the grant will pay for it then.
Okay, so, I mean, so that was all stipulated in the contract, in your contract.
Okay,
This is
fine.
outside of your scope. We're at about, that's 8 hours at about $1,200.
All right.
Okay.
So then when we do the painting for the striping and things, is that going to be covered by the grant, or that is going to be an additional change order to the contractor?
So Luciana, there's kind of two parts to that. So part one is that right now, there is only the binder coats in the parking lot. So at TCO, there's going to be some temporary striping until the full parking lot gets paved. So we have the full topping and then the contract striping. I think, you know, we don't need too much more time. We can get this coordinated and sent out so that we can update the striping. So it only needs, the striping will be the contract scope. There won't be any need to adjust that or to redo it, I should say.
Okay.
And Luciana, so the striping, signage, all of the make-ready work, the town will get reimbursed for that. That is covered by the grant, which the town is maxing out at $50,000. And then the only other thing I wanted to add here is, when we brought Voltrek on board, who's the EV charging station vendor, this was after the construction had started. So this is not something that was captured. The accessibility requirements, the signage requirements, something that wasn't captured in the contract documents.
So there's other vendors going to provide all that? Or are we going to have a change with O'Connor?
As far as the signage, Katie, I know you were looking at the accessibility. I mean, we would have to go back to O'Connor and see if they want any additional cost for that.
So we have vehicular signage, so that part was captured. So you know, FM and Niche had made some general assumptions and so in the site layout,
Mm.
we had an assumption that there would be some. So we've got vehicular
Okay.
signs for the spaces. We also have the sign that says, hey, EV parking, go this way. What we don't have that you might want to add in is there's a kind of a newer sign that says something to the effect of please use the one accessible space last, because there's 4 spaces. But as far as the code required signage, we've got that part covered.
Okay.
And all the electrical that goes to the charger, is that covered by the grant? $50,000 seems very low if you had, basically doing 2 level 2 ports. What are you doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, 2 level 2 dual chargers, and yes, all of the infrastructure to get to the EV charging station, all of that is covered by the grant.
But we
And if
had
it's more than
those,
50,000?
I have to go back and see. I do have a breakdown somewhere, but I would have to go back and double check on that, Lucia.
I thought we had it on the electrical, on site electrical. That we had EV stations, so we should own the electrical.
I agree with you, David. I believe all the infrastructure was part of the MOCC's contract.
Yeah.
We do. The electrical subcontractor owns all of the infrastructure. If you go by now, you can see there's a panel. All of the guts have been brought to that spot.
Yeah.
It's called, the final connections, the appliances, the devices and things that are going to go, by Voltrex, I think. But
Yeah.
yes, all the guts are there. That part was assumed with the site.
Yeah, you have to go from the panel to the
Mhm.
charger.
Yeah, we own that. It's just the charger themselves. That's the 50 grand.
Okay.
Yeah, so M. O'Connor own essentially all of the make-ready work in their contract, but so part of the grant covers that
Okay.
make-ready work itself, and then the other part of the grant is for the equipment itself, provided by Voltrek.
So in front of us, we have additional hours for FM, which was outside of the contract. So,
Okay, yeah.
okay. All righty. Anything else on EV coordination? Okay. Mechanical unit screen above lobby behind canopies. This is something that I actually brought up to Katie. I don't know if anybody has taken a look at it, and it's a little hard to see this with the construction fencing up, but when you enter if you were to look from Springdale Avenue at the building, and you peer over the actual construction fencing, the first thing you see, of course, is this, at least what I see, is some roof lines, but I also see a bunch of mechanical equipment, and it happens to be right over the front door. I think it's highly visible, and something should be done to mitigate that. I think FM's come up with a nice design, and the way the roof lines work is kind of neat, but then all of a sudden it's interrupted by this mechanical equipment. So I asked Katie in one of our meetings, can we do something about doing something for, to visually block that? So that was on me. I didn't understand that this would be an extra, though. That was not pointed out to me by FM or by Colliers. And I know you've started to work on it.
So I have, and I can give you kind of just a brief synopsis of this, is that in general, like anything, there's kind of a low, medium, and high option. So, if we're looking for a full screening, generally that gets tied to steel, and steel is often, tied to the building steel or some other penetration to, the roofing membrane that's, been recently installed. There are some options for ballasted fencing, but generally the wind loading is not favorable here, and that's, so that works in places where it's not windy. We have also reached out to the manufacturer of the rooftop units just to say, listen, can we just paint everything? Can we go the way of just trying to like take the edge off of that one? That one is actually, I think, probably most likely, the most viable option at this point, as far as the fast, cheap, and easy. And we did ask the manufacturer to, offer something in writing so that we can give you that, so you can vet that. Because we want to make sure that if we're touching the rooftop unit, they're okay with that. Ultimately, best case scenario, this would have been something that was an alternate or something that was incorporated into the steel, because in order to put something on top of the roof right now, it would require some demo work. And it would require some additional steel, within the roof to be able to penetrate and to anchor to that. We did look at, there are roof screens that attach to the units. Those are a little trickier and not necessarily ideal, particularly for our application. So, in the grand scheme of things, it's looking like if this wants to be touched, paint might be the best option to just, like I said, just take the edge off of it. But it's, it's something that unfortunately is not going to be, necessarily fast or easy.
So this screening, is in, this is beyond your scope, the original scope of work.
Yeah, and I'm gonna see if no one else, I think Deborah's on the call, but she might not be listening. To my knowledge, we never presented any kind of screening in any of the renderings. It was not part of the previous scope. I know there's plenty of times where things get included and then you may cut it out later. But I also know that, this group and others worked a lot to make sure that the building reflected the monies available. So I would also guess that if there had been a screen, that might have been a thing that got VE'd. But I don't, we don't have any documentation where we had designed a screen for this spot. So there isn't one for me to, show you some details for.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, one was never shown to us, and most renderings don't show the mechanical equipment. So
Agreed.
you don't know, unless the design team, thinks about it, doesn't happen. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to live with it, Dick.
Yeah, okay. No, I just, I didn't know how
I'm really
everybody
at the
felt,
photograph. Yeah, it is right over the door, and
but
you don't want to paint these things. They're just gonna flake off.
Yeah, I get, like I said,
Yeah.
we're trying to see, for make a couple of phone calls and see what options might be palatable to you all. And that's how I took the kind of request. So, this is the higher end.
Mhm.
If we needed to produce doc details and then review some, shop drawings and that kind of a thing, that's the reason why I said, okay, that could be a couple days. But if the, ask is just do some research, that's effectively what we've done.
Okay.
all right. Any other discussion on mechanical unit screening as it pertains to FM? Okay. Next one, additional exterior signage at South Canopy. Guess what? That was me again.
We have to keep you off the site there, Dick.
I know.
It's going to be expensive.
But once again, I didn't know this was going to be extra as far as from a design.
Good point.
So
So-
somebody's got to tell me these things, because I do have a lot more ideas, but I'll keep them under my head.
Okay. No, go for it.
This is on the south entry, right on the canopy. There's nothing, when you walk into the building from the parking lot and you walk into the doors, into the community center, there's nothing that says on that side of the building, Carroll Community Center.
Yeah.
It seemed very logical to me that there should be, and there's a perfect place to put this on the canopy, that, there should be something that says this is the Carroll Community Center.
I agree.
So that's how we got involved with this one.
And so Dick,
Um,
this one I can say we did, some quick work to put some details together and elevation, because I know that if you want the contractor to provide a PCO for this, they're going to need a thing to price. So that's both of these things. So that mechanical screen, you need details. For this one, you need something that someone can apply a number to. For order of magnitude, these letters are half the size of what's on the front of the building. But otherwise there's already a signage sub on site. This should be something that the contractor can pretty quickly put together a price to. So, this required a little bit of a slightly different attachment detail, but otherwise this is not a big lift.
And we had the same canopy in back.
So
I look at
the
the photos.
sign in the front of the building is on the pavilion part of the building. So it's right near where the kitchen window is. So it's on the brick building. This
Um,
would be on the south canopy coming from the parking lot.
Should be on the metal.
It's hardy board.
Oh,
and
okay,
then there's
whatever
a-
that light gray is, okay.
Yep, yeah, then there's kind of some roof edge metal around it.
You know, unless, the rest of the building committee doesn't feel like we need a, you know, a label there of Carroll Community Center.
No, I think we should.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. It's an entrance. You should have something that says entrance to it.
So Dick, what I didn't write in this proposal, but we have talked about since then is also, a monument sign closer to Whiting. So we did mock something up. Michael sent it to you, to kind of get some feedback of potential options. It's not broken out in this, but that was something, we created some sketches and took a couple pictures of other signs in town as
Mhm.
reference. So that's something else I'd love to hear, feedback if that's something that you want to pursue to keep moving forward, or if that's something you just want to do on your own.
So this is, there's nothing to, when you're, entering the parking lot, you're coming off of Whiting Road. There's nothing saying that this entrance is to the Carroll Community Center. Again, we had some discussions. It seemed logical to me that there should be a sign at the driveway entrance saying, this is where you go to the Carroll Community Center. So I asked FM, we talked about it, and they've come up with a proposal to kind of mimic some of the other signs that the town has posted around town. So again, this is not listed on this 06, but it's much like this,
Right.
this other signage. So again, I wasn't informed that it was going to be an extra cost, but
Yeah, so Dick, my challenge is not the extra cost in designing, 6 hours is nothing. My challenge is who's gonna build it, and because they're gonna charge, knowing after we put them on notice, they're gonna put 3 times the cost of what is gonna be. They're not gonna do a job, and it's the implication of this study that worries me, because we have a contractor that is not performing the way that we expect them. So I think those are important things for another contractor. We can put out another little bit afterwards.
yeah.
This is
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. But we will have that design, right, fees, and which is not part of this, but we will be faced with at some point. Do I have that right, Katie?
So we put together, like I said, some sketches so that to kind really to just get a better sense of if that is something that you want to pursue. And I say that because this point of the project, you can take lots of different directions. A monumental sign you could probably reach out to someone local to do that. The town has a different way of procuring that on your own. It's something that we mentioned on site, so I wanted to make sure that this got, like I said, I didn't break it out here. It was just something that we've talked about. So, like I said, some of these things are things that you can opt to do separately. We'd be happy to be involved, and that's also kind of why what we put together was a couple of different options, because it's hard to design something without a little bit of feedback of what the direction is, trending towards.
Okay, so basically then I just would like to ask the building committee then, are you all in favor of having FM spend some time to design this, a sign at the entrance to the community center from Whiting Road?
my vote.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, we're gonna need a design, because I think you're right, Dick. We're ultimately gonna want a sign there. How we get it is something we'll have to talk to later. I mean, public procurement's not cheap no matter how you go. Because if you go out to bid it, there's a cost to do that. But yeah, we need a cohesive design for all the signage, so it makes sense to have FMA do it.
I forgot to add before, because I know Carl's been smart to make sure that I say this as well. Obviously there was no signage presented to the town in the past, to the Board of Selectmen or to the Planning Committee. So if we are proposing something that's going to be a long wedding, that will, there'll also be some coordination with them as well to present that. So that, like I said, that's also why I'm pausing, because if you want to keep moving forward, we'll, make sure we have that conversation sooner than later so that it's a little more seamless.
Yep.
Okay. So we're on board with, we're on board with the, that exterior signage, both on the building and at the street. From a design standpoint. Okay. Any other discussions on exterior signage as far as those two items?
Yeah, Dick, can I jump in as a non-citizen? I think the sign that's gonna go on the building, in the front of the building, which is on the pavilion side, because that's gonna be attached to the building, to the canopy. I kind of think that should be part of this project. I know it's an extra, but I think you don't want somebody else attaching it. I think you want them to do it. That's my only thought there.
Yeah,
So
good.
having O'Connor do it.
But yeah, well, you're gonna have the work done by FMA and then have O'Connor put it up. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It will be more, but
I, so what are we voting on?
We're
Just design.
Fine, okay, so then let's keep the construction later on.
Yeah, I
Yep.
would agree. Let's keep on design, but thank you for it. I agree with you. It
Yep.
should be. And just so that there will be a PCO we'll be looking at a future date on that one. Okay, next one under your category B, a butter issue, level spreader and fence. When I total this all up, this is at about an $8,000 item, averaging your 150 for the FM 22 hours and niche 32 hours. I guess if you could explain why that, I thought the level spreader was all part of the original design.
So this is one I'm gonna pause a bit because I was not present
Just
for
interrupt
this.
for a second.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, level spreader is basically the discharge from the infiltration system, and it's on the
Oh, yeah.
south side of the lot that basically empties, on the south side of the lot, behind the, parking area. I'm sorry, go ahead, Katie.
Yeah. I was just gonna say this predates my time a bit. But my understanding was that it was some coordination with the abutter related to some concern about water runoff, and it was additional work that was needed for actual, scope of contract work. But prior to that, there were a series of meetings and coordination to get some feedback of the concerns. And in addition to this, there were a number of drawings and exhibits that were produced to share with the abutter for review and validation. And then it was, some additional work was issued to the contractor for the contract side. But there was a lot of coordination is kind of the key word for this. And as far as the level spreader, I do believe we had something in that area, but I think it was less robust.
And I was involved during when this work took place, and I was in those meetings with the abutter and their legal counsel representation, and also worked with FMA and Niche. There were some additional calculations that the abutter requested and their legal counsel requested. And so I do remember that was a little bit of a process to get that information to them. And Katie, like you mentioned, I do remember the level spreader being redesigned in a way. And also there were some additional, there was a trench around the basketball court that was added to the project that was not part of it as a result of those conversations with the legal counsel and the abutter.
So Katie, are the category B work that you have done and you're asking us to pay now?
Yes. So at a high level, there are several things that happened, throughout CA that were, done as a course of CA. Things pop up, we take phone calls, there's additional meetings. And like anything, it's easier to see when you look backwards than when you look forwards. So, for a number of these were, just part of the status quo. When we really started, getting to some of these that were just more time and more effort, that's when, we initially had a conversation with Colliers to say, listen, there is some additional work it's taking up more time, and ultimately it's taking us away from the contract scope.
Yeah.
And so we had some conversations, about saying, hey, do we need to get some additional staffing or something on this? We didn't go that route. We just, like I said, just kept doing the work, but this is a combination
Yeah,
of our time, but also the consultants as well.
I understand. Do this every day. So my direction is this. You just, half an hour ago, you said that you want to have additional funds because you spent what you were going to do for closeout and things on other CA. So what you're asking right now does not match what you mentioned earlier. Second point, as a rule, I do not pay for work that you have done and you didn't put me on notice.
Mhm.
So my vote is I don't pay for any notice. You should have told me, should I put the committee on notice? By the way, your discussion with Al to me means nothing. So this is my view. There are rules. I hate when consultant come back to me and say, oh, by the way, I worked this 6 months ago. Now you get me paid. Guess what? I told many times no, and I'll say no this time as well.
So how does the rest of the building committee feel about that?
I'm with Luciano. I'm same way. I mean, a lot of this is, yes, it may be more hours than you thought, but this is all part of the design coordination, dealing with, abutters is part of the process. If it's getting beyond what you thought, then that's the time to tell us about it. I'm looking at existing footings. It's a renovation, plumbing review, getting AHJ's approval is part of the process. And usually AHJs aren't the easiest, or quick meetings. It's a process. I agree with Luciana. If there's additional, then you got to tell us at the time, because there's no way we can verify or, really, approve this after the fact.
Ruth, do you have any comments?
I'm going to agree with Luciana and Dave.
Yeah.
And also, I just think it's like clear communication of, like you were saying, that there were certain things that you thought were the scope, within the scope, and they weren't. So it's just being really clear as to, okay, this is going to be an extra. Is that still okay for us to go ahead?
And I agree with everybody. I agree with you all as well. So if I can just sum this up then, on the additional proposal 06 from Fenwick and McCready, which is broken down into category A and category B. We are on board for category A items. Actually, why don't I put this into a motion? I move that the Fenwick McCready ad services proposal 06, which is broken down into category A and category B. The category A items be approved. The category B items, recommended for approval to the selectmen. Category B items, which are items which were past activities, and because the town was not noticed that there would be costs for these fees, there'd be fees associated with this cost, that they not be, the category B items not be approved, not be recommended for approval to the selectmen. Anybody want to amend that motion? If not, then let's
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are you in favor of the motion? David?
Yes.
Luciana,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Okay, that gets us through the Fennec McCready ad service proposals, 05 and 06. Next on the agenda is construction progress and schedule, so I'll turn that over to Colliers.
Thank you, Dick, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Eagly to walk us through the construction progress. Share my screen.
Okay.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So,
Good evening, everybody. So just running through some of the progress in February. I know we weren't able to do the site walk today, but on the site, you know, we have the basketball court foundation and excavation that's been started. Got placement of the concrete walkways and sidewalks finishing up actually this week. We're expecting to pour on Wednesday. It's been on a hold due to the weather, obviously. Some of the frost has been coming out of the ground in the past week and this week, so expecting that to finish up in the coming week. Moving over to the pavilion, so the acoustic panels along the perimeter are finishing up. They were working on the last portion on Friday. The flooring heat mats have been installed. Flooring has been completely installed in the pavilion as well. And then final painting ongoing, and this is sort of a theme throughout the entire building itself on the interior. All the exterior metal panel work is also complete in the pavilion. Moving over to the gym and the connector. So the storefront doors and hardware have all been installed. Working on some final items with the storefront doors and hardware with regards to the power supplies there, but the actual storefront is installed itself. Elevator adjusting and balancing has been completed, but we're still waiting on some final sign-offs from the elevator company itself. The wood ceiling tile has been installed in the foyer area, vestibule area. Gym flooring install has been completed. The base also has been installed as well. And then final painting, obviously ongoing. We're expecting the gym wall padding to start this week. They're expected to start today, but we'll follow up with the contractor tomorrow to see if they actually did start today. And that's it for the gym. Moving to the 1910, the stair railings and treads have been installed on both stairways. Final coats of paint ongoing sort of throughout. Flooring install has been completed in the 1910 building. Dance floor has also been installed. And then the ceiling tiles have also been installed throughout the space as well. And then just some March progress up to date and obviously the upcoming activities. The interior finishes completion is wrapping up pretty quickly. We're probably about 98% there. And then finalizing the install of the septic system. We expecting that to finish up within the next week or so. Finalizing fire alarm programming, and then the fire protection tanks being filled with water. We got that scheduled for potentially the end of this week, beginning of next week. They're going to be doing it in a couple different stages. I don't think it's going to be over 1 day, so I'm expecting that to be done at the end of the week. And then window testing scheduled for tomorrow. They've got about 3 days of testing there. The weather's been favorable, looking favorable for the week, so hoping to get that wrapped up. And then final building inspections and punch list. Obviously, we're all excited to get this completed, so that's sort of the next big ticket item that we're pushing for. So, any questions on the progress? We'll walk through some of the pictures, the actual progress itself, but. Okay. So, just on the left, exterior progress on the pavilion. Obviously, the metal work has been completed, roofing work has been completed, storefronts installed, and then the sidewalks are tarped off. I'm expecting to pour those this week. Same thing on the gym side. Obviously, the big outstanding item here is the sidewalk concrete work that we're expecting to close up towards the end of the week. Moving over to the 1910 building, a lot of the exterior work has been completed here as well. The only thing we're missing is the downspouts for the gutters. Expecting that work to be completed this week as well, as the weather is favorable. They're working on the exterior side of the vestibule, on the right side on the connector, just finishing up a couple of last minute items. And then moving to the interior. So in the pavilion, obviously acoustic panels have been installed, all the millwork has been installed. We've got the AV vendor coming at the end of the week to start installing the projector and the screens. The electrician is going to be finalizing the lighting heights and programming, and then the flooring has been installed as well. We've got floor protection down. And then in the connector itself, wood ceiling has been installed, railings, treads, flooring, final coats of paint sort of ongoing throughout. And then the elevator accessories and testing and balancing is completed as well. And in the gym, apologize, I didn't have a more recent picture, but the flooring in the gym is completely installed. And then all of the gym padding and accessories are going to be getting going this week. In the connector itself, on the second floor, ceilings have been flooded out, lights have been programmed, flooring's installed, and then final coats of paint are ongoing. Moving down to the first floor in the 1910 and the connector, sort of same theme throughout the entire space. Flooring's installed, painting all ongoing. You know, Emma O'Connor is sort of doing like an internal punch list with going around the space and patching and painting some areas. Got floor protection throughout the space. And then they're working on sort of cleanup in certain areas. Window shades are also getting installed throughout the entire space as well in the 1910. Same sort of progress in the second floor of the 1910. The flex space, obviously, final coats of paint are going on throughout some the space. In the dance room, the flooring and all of the accessories, grab bars, mirrors, everything's been installed. They're finishing up some work in the thresholds to get those closed out. That was the only item outstanding that we had at the end of last week in this area, and then obviously final coats of paint and the speakers being installed at the end of the week in the ceiling. And then on the exterior portion, the septic system obviously still waiting to be backfilled with the weather being favorable this week. We're expecting that to be wrapped up. And then the site lighting obviously is about 90% complete on the closer to the building. And then over in the parking lot area, that's still being worked on, but all of the light poles have been installed in the building proximity. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you, Igli. Okay, so moving on to the construction schedule. We received an updated schedule from the contractor on Thursday, last Thursday. And that schedule shows pushing out the date of substantial completion from early March until mid-April. One thing I do want to note here is that while they're showing mid-April for substantial completion, right now the contractor is tracking February 10th for their TCO. The temporary certificate of substantial completion, that's what, once we get that, that's what would allow the owner to start moving staff in. That's not to be confused with the date that the building opens to the public. But this is what the contractor is tracking right now. As you can see here, we do have a couple of activities that will lead up to that. Now, as far as the delay, well, just like every month, we reconcile the liquidated damages / actual damages and then preemptive withholding. What that means for the current payment application for March. We still don't have the delay claim or corrective plan. So we adjusted the withholding. There's an additional $40,709.58 of withholding. That part of that is because this date was moved further out. And so total to date, we're withholding $284,495. 211,000 of that is for liquidated damages, and 73,500 is for preemptive withholding for failure to provide the corrective plan. And that is tied to the date of substantial completion of April 18.
Al, can I ask you a favor? What I would like, which is gonna help our letter to the contractor, I need you to develop like kind of a summary of all the time that they've been delayed, right? So because we see the new construction schedule, I need to start seeing the delta. When did they say that each of these were gonna start from the schedule that we approved all the way to now? So that we can really see the history of those delays. I am assuming that they're paying the subcontractors. Are they? Do you know if they're withholding payments to the subcontractor, which I think it's illegal, or I don't know they're going to do, right? And then I need you to estimate how much. So you're saying this is total withheld until today, which is March 9. Based on the new, what is the estimate of how much we will withhold, and how much is going to be what we're going to be asking them if we charge them back all the costs from Fenwick McCready going forward?
Yep, I can pull that out,
Yeah.
pull that up in a second here. Yep. So I got as far as things. Yeah, as far as the question on whether they're withholding from the subcontractor, the answer is no. The 200, everything that we're withholding from the contractor is strictly from their general conditions. We're not withholding anything from the subcontractors, and they do have this represents only a portion of their. I think their general conditions build to date was about 700 something thousand, so it was reduced to about 490,000. So this just represents a portion of, and again, this is based on actual damages as well as anticipated liquidated damages, and I can. So this does capture us tracking forward until it includes a forecast until April 18th. Let me see if I can pull up have a little bit more detail here. Oh. Here we go. All right, perfect. Okay, so you've seen this. I believe that I shared this during the last billing committee meeting. I update this every month. Right now we're in the month of February. The reason why you see some of these blank is because we weren't sure what was going to happen with the FMA's ad services and their invoice, and so I'm tracking those costs for the month of March, and so right now the actual damages is 210,000, and then we're tracking 73,000 for from the end of the payment period until April 18, which is the date anticipated date of substantial completion. And I have here a couple of rough estimates of what I think potentially we would be the actual damages would be for the town. So if I were to add those up, all of these, the total is about $415,000.
Okay, yeah, but if you can summarize it, I need a document that says, and we might want to have, I don't know how the letter is going to work, so I think between now and the next time we meet, we need to expedite the notification to them.
Absolutely.
We've been notifying O'Connor every month of the amount that we're holding, correct?
That is correct.
So they know, they've seen this spreadsheet.
Yes.
Or something similar to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess, frankly, going back to the schedule, my other question is they have a $2.2 million balance to complete as of this rec. And they've been averaging 500,000 a month. So they're, by their own cash flow, they're 4 months out. How do we think they're going to be done next month and complete $2.2 million worth of work? Even if they do 90% of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I know that over the last couple of weeks, there were a couple of PCOs or issues that came up on site that we had to try to expedite to get M. O'Connor direction so they could continue moving. So I mean, yeah, that's that's a good question. I think I think, yeah, I mean, as we saw in the pictures, I think things are moving on site. you know, I could look at the cash flow a little bit more, see if there's anything there that, you know, potentially it's on the low side as far as what's built, what, you know, could actually be built. So I could certainly dig into that a little bit more.
Again, I gotta look to you guys that are managing this. Just looking at their history, what they've been able to accomplish and what they've got left. Are they gonna be substantially complete by the middle of next month? I have my doubts. But I asked this a month ago and he said they'd be done, so. Yeah, we need a real understanding of when they're gonna be done, what's gonna be accomplished and when.
No, and I do see here, I know that part of that, you know,
Even without them, there's still $2.2 million.
yeah, I mean, and you know, there's a good chunk of that, it's retainage on the project as well.
But just looking at their, work to complete, it's gonna happen when it happens, but let's be clear.
Yep.
Let's
Yep.
manage them accordingly. And if there's something that's holding them up, that's a real problem. If we
Yeah, I mean,
delay them, then all of this goes away and they win.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Understand
We're
how contracts work.
yeah, no, certainly, and we're really, you know, trying to working hard to get them, you know, answers as soon as like questions come up on site.
At this point, there shouldn't be too many questions. So, it's all right.
Any more questions on the schedule here?
Nope.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, sorry.
When can we actually start using the building? What's the projection?
Yeah, I
start
mean,
programs.
yeah, I mean, so, you know, right now, if we go by Emma O'Connor's, you know, schedule from Thursday, they're, you know, anticipating requesting the temporary certificate of substantial completion in the beginning mid-April, so around April 10th. Once we have the temporary certificate of occupancy, that's when, you know, the town can start moving in, even if it's not open to the public, but at least like, you know, staff moving, just to start getting, you know, familiar with the building and operations.
I mean, when does Colliers think, I mean, when can we kind of say, hey, public, guess what? We're all done. Come and see our, your brand new Carroll Community Center.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have like, because there's a lot of moving parts, and I don't know that I can sit here today and give you like, okay, on these dates when the building is gonna open to the public. Unfortunately, I wish I could. I do feel that this schedule is achievable. Right now, we answer a lot of questions that came up over the last couple of weeks. There's like maybe one item right now that we're tracking that it's potentially, holding up the contractor, but there's other things. So for example, right now I know that they're waiting, on the elevator, right? They're waiting on the fire alarm needs to be done. For the fire alarm, we're waiting on a panel that is going to be delivered this week. And so once we have that, I'm not aware of any other open items that would necessarily hold up TCO. I know Igli and I were looking at this schedule earlier, and what we can see here is that they're showing the punch list starting in a month from today. However, final painting is going on right now. And so one of the things we wanted to discuss some more, hey, is there any way, like, understanding that, there's a couple of things like the fire alarm panel that they're still waiting on, maybe, one or two other questions out there. Is there any way Emma O'Connor can get started with it? And I think Igli mentioned they're starting on the pre-punch, but is there any way they can actually start on this punch list before? I mean, this is a month out and they're doing final painting right now. Is there any way they could start this before so that then, FMA potentially can get started on their punch list before and they can get going on that work? So we'll again, we just got this schedule on, I believe, Thursday afternoon. So we'll discuss this with the contractor and see if we can, find ways to accelerate this a little bit.
So can you come back at some point and just let us know what Colliers feels, we're gonna be done? That's all. That's the question I'm asking.
Okay.
You know, I know it's a moving target, but, you know, does Colliers, are you agreeing with their schedule? But their schedule only shows to say substantial completion and not, you know, in my mind, complete. You know, all the work's
Yeah,
done.
final completion. When is furniture moving in or scheduled?
Monday.
Furniture is scheduled Monday?
Yeah, it's Monday. We coordinated with WB Mason. I mean, you know, coordinated with WB Mason. We know that the punch list, you know, we still need to do the punch list. Unfortunately, they weren't able to push the schedule out. Just installers were all, you know, tied up, unfortunately. But yeah, the plan is for furniture to
We can't take furniture Monday. The building's not even closed. How are they gonna get? All right.
And
You're
you
gonna
think
have
they-
workmen all over the furniture. You're gonna have sanding. You're gonna have punch lists. I mean, they're still working. They're a month out. There's no way we can take furniture until it's substantially complete.
we can discuss that again with them, O'Connor. I mean, they've been aware of the furniture delivery for a while now, and again, we've tried to move that date up. Unfortunately, the installers are, you know, they have other commitments, so we weren't able. But we'll check with them, O'Connor, tomorrow and see, you know,
Someone's
see
gonna
what
have
the,
to store it. Or, you know, we
Mhm.
can't take possession of furniture when they're still working. It just doesn't work that way.
So does WB Mason can store the furniture? Is that correct, Al?
that is correct.
And can that cost be passed along to M. O'Connor?
I'm sorry, repeat that one. What cost for installing?
And can that extra cost, if I assume that WB Mason holds on to the furniture and stores it for us for another month, that's gonna come with a cost, and that cost could be passed along, potentially be passed along to M. O'Connor.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely want to check with Nina on that one to make sure that we can, you know, essentially backcharge the contractor, just like we were discussing a couple of the other items. But yeah, I can check with Nina on that one.
Yeah, can I jump in?
Yeah,
This
please.
is Ford. It's my understanding from our last Tuesday meeting, Al, that you had talked to them about delaying the move-in, and they told you that they could not move in any later than the 11th because they had other commitments. Is that correct?
The 11th of
The 11th,
for
March.
Ford,
Yeah,
you're talking about
I think you
W.
mean the 17th, or
it was the 17th. So
17th.
why are we, so we're moving in on the 17th, not the 11th?
No, it's next week, Ford. It's
Yeah.
Carl.
Next
But,
week.
but aren't I right that they can't do it later than that?
That's correct, Ford.
That's what I heard.
Yep,
This is
They're
WB
scheduled for-
Mason can't do it?
Yeah.
correct.
there's absolutely no other dates that they can do?
So my question, let me jump back, keep jumping in. Al, you talked to them and I don't know what parameters you gave them, but I don't know if you gave them 30 days out or you were giving them a week or two out. But that's sort of what I heard, so I'll disappear again.
Yeah, I mean, we already pushed the date, you know, the furniture delivery date a couple of weeks. I think we had like March 1st for a while, and you know, due to the schedule, we moved it up. But that's all we were able to move it because of the installers' prior commitments.
Are they available, Al, after the 15th? When the building is substantial completion and all the workers are out of there, other than the punch list?
I could check again with Jason on that. Carl, I'll give him a call tomorrow, and then
Yeah.
we'll bring this up during the OEC meeting tomorrow.
Yes, I'm just trying to get a handle on it. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it's WB Mason that's bringing the furniture. There's nothing to do with O'Connor.
Correct.
O'Connor needs to finish the building. We need to have told Mason like a month ago what the date is. You knew they weren't gonna be done. I mean, we simply cannot accept the furniture with them still working in there. Any damage to the furniture, the contractor's not gonna pick up. You know, have O'Connor, protect all the furniture while they're still doing work? How's that gonna happen?
We'll bring this up during the OEC tomorrow and see, see what we can do there.
All right.
Any other questions on schedule? Okay. I also included a couple of the late activities. I included these last month. For the most part, these haven't changed. As we discussed, some of the final paving, it's gonna, right now that's anticipated in the beginning of May.
What's the purpose of doing a striping the temporary paving? We're not gonna open it until it's finally paved.
Yeah, I mean, the idea with that was to get, get the TCO, so that at least the staff can move in.
Staff needs a striped parking lot?
I was under the impression that that was a requirement for TCO, potentially a requirement for TCO.
Well, if it's, when you're talking 4 staff people, I don't check with the inspector. I think it's just waste of effort.
Yep. We'll ask tomorrow during the OAC as well. Okay, any other questions on schedule? Moving on to the budget. It's typical, everything highlighted in yellow are the changes. I'll go over what these are. The one thing to note is on the column E at the bottom, this is essentially the risk log or anticipated exposures that has been updated with the current open or pending PCOs and other soft cost change orders. We'll go into detail what those are. And right now we're tracking worst case scenario, all of these get approved. We're tracking a remaining contingency of 36% or 887,000. Any questions on the overall budget?
So we're still tracking $185,000 in changes, construction changes.
That's correct, yes.
Do we have a full list and the dates that they've been out? That's a lot of money for being a month away from substantial.
Yeah, we have a list. I'll go over that in the next couple of slides.
All right.
Any other questions on the overall budget? All right, so this is just a summary of the change orders to date. Now what you see at the bottom right, sort of highlighted in the tan color, these are change orders that we approved directly through Michael Blanchard for the sake of maintaining the schedule and avoid potential additional cost. We can certainly go into detail of these as needed. So we don't necessarily.
I noticed was the septic pump. That's just changing from a 20 amp to a 50 amp pump. Is that the only change?
There was a couple other changes associated with let me see if I can pull up the email.
Is that because that's just a submittal?
I'm gonna try to pull up the email that I sent to Michael Blanchard. We also had BBH comment on that one as well. They vetted it. BBH,
fine.
FMA, and Colliers.
All right. I mean, are there any delay claims with these?
So that's actually the reason why these are CCDs, because M. O'Connor was looking for a delay claim on a few of these, but we wouldn't necessarily agree on the time extension, which is why we went the CCD route with these.
These $800,000 here total approved, are those included in the overall budget?
Yes.
So you have, after paying these 800,000, you still have 800,000 left, right?
Yes.
And all of those this $800,000 covers, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to explain it. If we end up paying, we're doing liquidated damages, so we are withholding, you're estimating $500,000. Are these $800,000 considering that we are holding this $500,000 or that we are paying $500,000?
Yeah, so this number right here, so right now the worst case scenario, 387,000, includes the soft cost and hard cost potential changes to the project. All of that is being tracked in the contingency here. So that 387,000. Now these calculation for the worst case scenario total contingency does not include potential the potential money that we're withholding from the general contractor that the town could potentially keep. So in a way, this number, this 887,000 is more conservative. So say, right now we're withholding 280,000 from the contractor. Say at the end of the project, we're withholding 400,000 just to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And then say after settlement, say, let's just go 50-50. Let's say the town keeps 200,000 of that. Then that would be added to essentially the contingency. So in a way, this number is a little bit more conservative that way.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on the approved change orders to date? Okay, moving to the pending. So this is the pending change orders, David, that add up to the 185,000. As you can see, the last 3 rows, a good chunk of that, it's for VE items that we discussed last month, and the building committee was interested in at least pursuing a pricing on those. So that's 100,000 right there of the 185,000. So items that we're potentially adding to the contract. I wanted to make sure I track those for just worst case scenario. And then everything that you see in yellow, it's new, or bold. It's also new. Now there are a total of 5 rows here, or PCOs, that are highlighted in blue. Out of those, we want to present 4 of them to you all for approval recommendation. These have been vetted by the design team, the engineers, and Colliers as well. Eagle, I know you've been working on a lot of these. Do you mind walking us through some of these? And as you can see, the dollar value of these, we have one for 4,000. We have one for 73 is the one that we're not ready to present tonight. We have a credit for 3,200. I know we've been going back and forth on that one a lot to try to get the credit that we believe is deserved. And then one for 1,300 and 2,800. So as you can see, it's a fairly small dollar value. Eagle, if you don't mind walking us through these. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So PCO 44, the added wood base. So essentially we're just changing some of the stainless steel base that was originally scoped to wood base, just for the essentially being a warmer color palette. This was just a design change. Like Al said, this is incorporated with PCO 78. I've been trying to get the highest dollar value back for the stainless steel base from the Miss Metal subcontractor. So it's been a couple of revisions to this. Essentially, the delta with this one would be about $800 for the additional wood base. And then PCO number 80, the roof leader box out in the gym. This is for the southwest corner of the gym. Essentially, to box out the roof leader so we can apply the gym padding. And then PCO number 83, this is additional windows sill. So this is for the lookout windows in the second floor of the connector. The current sills there are wood. Was a suggestion made by the building committee to get some pricing for solid surface. This is the price for it. We vetted it. Seems fair and reasonable. This is roughly the cost for. We had a similar change order in the pavilion, and it was more or less the same cost. So yeah. Any questions?
Those are all aesthetic type of change order, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
They're all, so you said added wooden base, you were going too fast, $4,000, not $800, right?
Yeah, so this is so with PCO 78, this is tied in together with we split them up because one is a credit and the other one is a positive. So the delta between the two PCOs, it's essentially the same scope, just the credit is for the stainless steel.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then the added window sills?
Yeah, these are for the lookout windows and the looking over the gym in the connector. So changing the
Inside.
sills
So the inside, right? Indoor.
on the indoor. Yep, correct.
What's that, Igley, I have a question. What's it all add up to, the ones in blue?
I don't have a live file in front of me, Al. I don't know if you can do the math.
Yep, I'll get that right here. So where are we at? That one, not 73. That's total 5,164 and 41 cents.
Okay. Hey, any more any more discussion on the proposed change orders that are highlighted in light blue?
No.
If not, I'll make a motion to recommend for approval to the Board of Selectmen. Number 44, added wood base. Number 73, door 102 wall conflict. Number 78, added wood base per ASI 18, a credit. Number 80, ASI 34, roof leader box out. And 83, ASI 35, added window sills for a total of $5,164.41. Is there a second?
Dick, I would just everything I think was fine. The only one is 73. That one we're not recommending for approval, even though it's highlighted in blue. That's my fault.
Okay, is that in the total you gave me, 5,100?
It's not in the total I gave you, but I believe that you mentioned that one as one of the PCOs.
Okay.
Okay, well then, not including PCO 72, if I had mentioned it, I'll amend my motion. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Great. Are you in favor, David,
Yes.
Luciana,
Yes.
Ruth?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well.
I wanted to go back on this one for a second. One thing I did not mention that we typically don't capture in our budget are the grants. So the town is anticipating a $50,000 grant, like I mentioned earlier, for Mass EVIP, a $500,000 grant for decarbonization, and an Eversource grant for around $40,000. As far as the decarb grant, the town has already received $375,000 of that. So again, we don't typically capture those, but you know the town is receiving about $600,000 worth of grants on the project.
Okay. Thank you, Barry.
Yeah.
So let's see what's next. So now moving on to the soft cost, kind of similar, broke it down to the approved ones up here in the box up at the top. What you see in 10 here is basically just moving the Collier's ad services proposal to the approved section based on the last building committee meeting. And then here at the bottom, the pending change orders, we have FMA's 2 ad services proposals. We know that, and then I'll adjust this based on today's approval recommendations. And then the site furniture is another one of the VE items that the building committee showed interest in that we're pursuing pricing on. So nothing to vote on approval. We already voted on approval on these 2, so there's nothing to do here. Any questions? Okay, and looking at the contingency, I showed this briefly earlier. Potential change orders, including soft cost and construction contingency change orders, 387,000. That's basically these 201,000 down here for FMA, and again, that's good. That number's gonna drop based on today's approval recommendations, plus the potential change orders 185,000, of which about 100,000 is for additional scope requested. So we're anticipating a forecasted total contingency of around 887,000. That's at about 36% of the original contingency. Construction is 93.72% built as of the end of March. February. and the project is around 89% built. Any questions on the contingency?
Yeah, does the, and I don't know if this is, if you can answer this question or not. You referenced the grants of about 600K. Is that in the building? It's not captured in your budget sheet. Does the town consider that as money allotted for the community center? Do you know?
That's a good question. We typically, my understanding at least, and I can check with Phil on this. My understanding is we typically wouldn't show grants here as almost like contingency. That's for the project to use. But we could certainly ask. And David, I saw you kind of nodding your head there, or I don't know how you typically.
Yeah,
handle.
you wouldn't put it in the budget. I'm not sure it goes. You have to ask the town.
Yeah. Okay.
How that, I mean, we got the 50,000 for the EV, which will be a direct buy,
Right.
and then everything else just goes to the town's coffers.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So moving on, the last.
So usually grants have a very strict limitation of what you can use it or not. So someone should be reading the grants, NOFO and all the documents related.
Thank you, Luciana. Okay, so the last kind of slide here is the invoice summary. We do have quite a few invoices here. We have M. O'Connor's invoice number 20, and the reason why I'm highlighting that in yellow is because the approved amount is different than the invoice amount. This is to reconcile the withholding. So that the approved amount is $480, $486 and 98 cents. We have our invoice for the month of February. We came in at 19,700. So this is under the 30,000 not to exceed. So just about 10,300 there, under the not to exceed. We have FMA's invoice. So this one, the reason I'm highlighting in yellow, it's because we weren't sure on the ad service, but what was going to happen with the ad services. So given that, so now this invoice here included the month of January at the ad services rate of 19,500, included the month of February at the same rate of 19,500, but then it also included a number of the ad services number 6 items that was not, most of which was not recommended for approval. So we will need to adjust this. I guess my question would be is if the building committee should or would entertain, I guess, since the ad services, the time extension ad services was recommended for approval and FMA hasn't been able to bill against January and February, if the building committee would entertain approving those two January and February of 19,500 each for the Board of Selectmen's approval. I'm not sure. We did that in the past with their last additional services proposal, where the building committee recommended for approval both the ad services and the invoicing associated tied to that ad services. But wanted to throw it out there. Not sure if
can we make a motion to vote the 71,700 minus those that we did not approve, and you'll make the math?
If they
yeah,
I hate it's withholding money to anyone, so I want to pay them.
Yeah, I agree. We need to pay FM, and it's basically, we're looking at 19.5 times 2, right, for 39,000. So I don't know if you can quickly make an adjustment on your sheet, or whether we should go with, if you can't, then Luciana, I think that's a great idea.
I like Luciana's idea because I believe that maybe a portion of this might be for the category A of ad services 6 that was recommended for approval by the building committee.
Yes,
so
I want to make sure we pay for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically all of FM minus category B in their ad service proposal 06, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry, keep going. Yeah, and then so we have a whole bunch of invoices from Oakers. They're not fully billed yet. I forgot how much was remaining. I could take a look at that. They still have some more work left. So they're not 100%. They're like Egley mentioned, they're coming back at the end of the week for the projectors and speakers.
Well, we're not
And-
paying for those yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this is what's been installed.
Yes.
Okay,
And then WB Mason, for the furniture, they, that is 146,000. That does not include installation. That's just for essentially having the furniture bought out and stored. And then the last one is for the arborist. So this is a $600 invoice. This was their services are complete. In coordinating with DPW, the tree warden Kevin McCabe, as to what we were gonna do with the trees that need to come down along the abutters properties. He recommended that we engage a master certified arborist to make a recommendation, and so this is for that report and those services. Any questions on these invoices?
yeah, my question is on Mason. I don't feel right paying for all this furniture when we don't know when it's gonna show up.
So yeah, talking to Jason, he said he want, that furniture is they're storing it right now. That furniture has been bought and it's being stored. So he wanted to pay the their sub vendors, I guess, for that furniture. Again, this invoice does not include installation or delivery.
Well, then it'd be paid as stored material, which means you need
Yep.
to, do all the, transfer a title and insurance and all the paperwork required for stored material.
Yep, no, a good point, David. I'm working with Jason on those documents. So what I was gonna say, if we,
Okay,
potentially this is subject to those documents being provided, I need to get a certificate of liability of insurance from the town, and over to like a template for Jason. That's one thing he requested.
they know how to do it.
Yeah, they just want to
What do you
see.
mean they know how to?
They just want to see the limits that the town wants. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought as well. But
No, the limits the value of the furniture.
Yeah.
And
And if
Yeah.
I could add, this is Carl. The procurement laws restrict you from paying something that you don't have in your possession.
right, that's why you need transfer of title.
Right, okay.
so potentially this is subject to getting all those documents, David.
Yeah, no, that as long as that's understood, I have no problem with that.
Yep. So that's it for the invoices. So
You want to give us a new number?
so I think it'll be the same number, except, two things. One of them will be subject to, the FMA's invoice being revised to remove ad services 6 category B cost, and subject to WB Mason providing the required offsite stored materials documentation.
Okay,
Okay, can I put that as a motion then? Or do I have to repeat that? Anybody?
no, we can just
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there a second to that motion?
second. Yeah,
Okay, all those in favor, I will pull the board. David,
yes.
Luciano,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well.
Okay, any citizens? Future business, any new business, anyone?
Yeah, I just want to ask if the committee members want to take a tour of the site. If we can, if we organize it, if they would like to, see if we can put together a time.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, you can do it before the next meeting. Or we'll do it sooner.
There is a tour happening on Wednesday the 19th with the students.
Oh,
Yep, that's gonna be at 7 o'clock, Ruth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in joining us with the students, just let me know. Happy to coordinate that.
That's when? 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock on March the 19th.
Okay. Um,
And if any of the members would like to go during the day, I'm available to take them around.
Do you guys think that a month from now is too long for a walkthrough with the entire building committee?
when's the next meeting?
No, so actually right here,
April
14th.
14th.
Oh, I'm not gonna be there. I'm not gonna be in town.
Then should we change that one?
Yeah.
It's, I'm available the 7th or the 21st.
You're not available the 7th through the 21st?
No, I am available on the 7th or the 21st if we want to
Okay.
keep a Monday.
I
But I'm
cannot
out of
do-
town from the 9th through the 16th
Now, I
of
think
April.
first, isn't that April vacation?
The 21st is April vacation.
Yeah. And I cannot do the 7th.
How about another day that week?
Which week, the 7th or the 14th?
Well, the
7th.
yeah, the week of the 7th.
I'm
do
only
9.
in the 8th. I'm gone from the 9th on.
Oh,
Any conflicts for the 8th then?
I can do that.
I can do that after 6 p.m.
Okay.
And I can do the 8th also.
Dick, just a question. Do you have a problem with your meeting coordinating it with when the bills have to be paid?
That should work. It's a little early, but we should be able to make that work. Good question, Ford. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll do April 8th at 6:30. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Fine.
Okay.
Is there a site walk on the 8th potentially before that, or?
Possible. I don't know.
We could.
All right, why don't we plan then on a site walk then, and we will hold the meeting. I'll talk to we'll hold the meeting in person then.
Can we do well, I won't be able to make the site walk at 5:30, I don't think.
Okay. I mean, we can also do, it'll also be on Zoom, but we could also meet at the in the selectmen's meeting room, assuming that it's available.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, citizen comments, future business recommendations, future meeting dates. I think we've covered it. Is there anything else? If not, then I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Nope.
Okay.
That
All in
was,
favor? David?
that was a bit quick,
Yes.
Luciana.
Luciana,
Yes.
yes, and Ruth,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye,
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.